Did you see that friend of mine, Fred, trying to hug that cactus? He's always trying to do that. It's a full-time job just for me to keep him on the straight and narrow. Have you hugged your cactus today? Well, if you haven't, you better do it. But be careful. There's cactus down in this country here in around Phoenix, Arizona, where we're going to in this travelogue. It's the land of the Apache. It's the land of the snowbird today. And we're going to take a look at some spring baseball and some of the countryside down here. So come along, we'll have some fun. Snowbirds and others have come in droves to the Valley of the Sun. They golf, play cards, play shuffleboard, go sightseeing, and gather to socialize and listen to a little entertainment. Here is the Canadian cowboy singer George Canyon entertaining the folks down south. And you run into a lot of this stuff where it's easy going and easy music and people there holidaying and having a good time.
As sure as night is dark and day is light, I'll keep you on my mind both day and night. I've been inside no proves that it's right, because you're mine. I walk the line. Because you're mine. I walk the line.
We took the modern train downtown, and Phoenix is a typical downtown kind of place. It is a cycling kind of country, and the trains all had racks to accommodate the bikes. There was lots of traffic around, but the road infrastructure was good. And it's a wide open area, and traffic seemed to have ample room to move. The architectural designs along the highways were thematic of the desert sun country. It reminded you that you were welcomed into snowbird country. With 5 million people, Phoenix is the 5th largest urban center in the U.S., and currently it is the fastest growing center. It didn't take us long to get out of the urban center and into the desert. The Lost Dutchman camping area is a popular camping spot, and it's on the east side of the city. The Lost Dutchman State Park is at the base of Superstition Mountain, and Superstition Mountain is built on the legend of a guy who struck it rich, and he mined his rich gold claim, then lost or hid the gold somewhere. People have been looking for the Lost Dutchman's gold mine ever since. Several have died looking for it or been killed by others in this isolated desert area. I remember quite a few years ago walking into the back country and finding these long lines of stone fences where an old hermit lived. And he kept his horses and goats inside the big rock-fenced enclosures. Someone came by his place one day and found him dead in his bed in his one-roomed bunkhouse. Blood trailed into the house from outside, indicating that someone had ridden by, some conflict had occurred, and the horse rider shot the hermit, then rode away. The old hermit had drug himself across the ground and into his house. He left a note on the table saying that he was going to die in his bed, which he did. There is about 5 rural, regional desert parks that surround Phoenix, and some people make it a project to camp in each one. We've camped and biked in several of them. First time I saw bike riders in the desert, I couldn't figure out what was going on. All I could see were their heads moving smoothly and quickly just across or above the shrub. Then I saw the trails twisting through the desert, and it wasn't too long before we were on one of those trails as well. It was great bike riding. Stay on any one of the many trails, and chances are you won't run over snakes or get cactus into your tires and get flats. Bike tires here have to have a foam sprayed into their tires and have reinforced tire tubing in order to avoid flat tires caused by cactus needles. Old saguaro cactus like these that have died from disease or fire or old age make good homes for woodpeckers and other birds. Old saguaro cactus tends to peel off at the lower levels as they get older and start to lose their health. Early indigenous people took the pole-like stalks and used them for the structure in building their houses. I was bike riding one morning and I saw this white icicle-looking thing in the distance across the desert. What could it be? I couldn't figure it out. Well, a closer look and it seemed to have some movement to it. I rode back to the camper and told my wife about it. But when we went back to look, there was nothing. It was gone. After we repeated the same process a couple of times more, my wife suggested that perhaps I was imagining things. I took my binoculars next day and saw this, a giant water spray in the middle of the desert. What's going on? We had to investigate this even further. We drove a circular route over in the direction of the water spray and came to a town called Fountain. Water sprayed 170 meters high in the middle of a small lake in the town. The sprayer worked on a timer, so that explained why I saw that spray one time, but not the next time. The water spray operation and the whole town was the creative work of an engineer by the name of Robert McCullough, and he was the same guy who had bought London Bridge and brought it to Lake Havasu. You might have seen that travelogue we made on London Bridge at Lake Havasu, over to the west along the Colorado River. Anyway, this fountain here was a nice town, and the mystery of the tall spray in the middle of the desert was finally solved. This is Apache country. U.S. policy throughout the wars against all indigenous people was to build a fort close to Indian territory where troops could patrol and attack, and then return to the safety of the nearby fort when necessary. The fort in this area was Fort McDowell, and it was built in the territory of the Yavapai indigenous nation. The Yavapai here have been categorized as Apache, but they are a distinct group who intermarried with the Apache and sided with them in conflicts against the U.S. military. The Apache Nation ranged from here south into Mexico in the mountains and deserts of the southwestern United States. They, like the Navajo, speak the same Athabascan language as the indigenous groups in northern Canada. So, are they related? If so, to what extent might they be related in past years? Why are they so far from Canada? Scholars continue to speculate on the extent of this relationship. Numerous Apache culturally related tribes spread across the deserts and mountains of New Mexico, Texas, southern Colorado, and eastern Arizona. Examples include the San Carlos Apache, Mescalero, Tonto, Lipan, and Chiricahua. The huge Fort McDowell farm is a Yavapai operation, growing mainly pecans. Here is some of the massive pecan orchard in the off-season. It also grows alfalfa or hay and barley, and also a number of citrus fruits like lemons, oranges, and grapefruit. The Hispanic families originally in the area grew alfalfa for the U.S. Army horses. The land is irrigated from two dams on the Verde River. We enjoyed driving the backcountry, but don't have too big of an RV if you do that. This is rugged mountainous backcountry, and not all of it is accessible on paved roads. And even some of the paved roads can have quick flood areas in the desert. Where there is water, you will find tourists. Always take a boat tour if you get a chance. A view from the water's edge always offers a different perspective. The drinking water is not so tasty here because desert water contains a lot of minerals. I think I mentioned that water that irrigates the pecan farm comes from the Verde River, which is a tributary of the Salt River. And the Salt River is the main river in this area. Phoenix water is stored in underground reservoirs, and the wastewater is recycled in a continual attempt to lower the per capita water use. As it is, nowadays, about 40% of the water used in Phoenix is piped in from over 500 kilometers away. And that's from the Colorado River, which is on the western side of the state. Before we left Phoenix, we just had to run back into the city to one of the several baseball stadiums there where they run spring baseball. They run spring baseball in Florida in what they call the Grapefruit League over there. But here in Phoenix, they call it the Cactus League. And it's a great sunny afternoon. It's a real way to spend a little bit of time. Let's take a look. At one of the parks we went to, these big baseballs in the parking lot tell you that you're on the way to get your ticket at the front gate. The cheap seats are beyond the center field, but the warmth of the new spring sun cannot feel better. Each springs bring in a dedicated groups of fans who get their only chance to see their favorite players in live Major League action. At one of the games, who should pull up but the big Budweiser Anheuser-Busch Clydesdale beer wagon? The original team and wagon were bought in the 1930s from a small Canadian brewery in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Clydesdales originated in Scotland. They made their way then to Canada and eventually to the United States, where they've become an American culture icon today. Several teams of Budweiser horses are located throughout the U.S., and they are popular hits in big events like the Rose Bowl Parade, the Super Bowl, state fairs, the Calgary Stampede, and here at spring baseball. There are 10 horses on each team, and they're transported by fancy cushion ride trailers pulled by semi-trucks. Each gelding must be at least 4 years old, strong, and an even temperament. The desired color pattern with the Budweiser teams must also be consistent. A horse size is measured in hands, and horses must be at least 18 hands tall from ground to the horse's withers. And the withers is that part, is the ridge on the bone between the shoulder blades on the top of the back of the horse. Since one hand equals about 10 centimeters, the horse must be at least 180 centimeters tall, or almost 6 feet. Just raise your arm to that 6 foot height, and think what it would be like to jump up on an animal that tall. These Clydesdales are big animals. Here's another member of the Budweiser team, the Dalmatian Dog. They were included as guard dogs to prevent beer thieves from stealing beer off the wagon while the driver delivered the beer into bars and buildings. Originally from Croatia, these dogs are smart and energetic. They would run along the horse-drawn carriages, and they've been popular as hunters, and they've worked as in firehouses and as circus performers. However, they do require early and strict training, or they can quickly become bored and therefore kind of destructive. They are great companions, but you must spend a lot of continuous time and work with them. Well, there you have it. I go travel with Don Barnett. I hope you liked Phoenix, and when you get old like me, maybe you'll come on down here and do a little snowbirding. Okay, well, if you liked it, thumbs up and hit the subscribe button, and we're not finished down here in Arizona. We're going to look at a few more things. So, adios till then, amigo. We'll see you then. That guy is still hugging that cactus.